Hello, I'm Gordon Lane, editor of CameraLabs.com. I'd like to give you a brief video tour around the Sony Cybershot DSC T70. Here it is, the T70. It's a slim 8 megapixel compact camera with a 3x optical zoom lens. Now, like all of Sony's Cybershot T series, it features a sliding front panel that acts both as a lens protector and an on-off switch. So slide it down and it will power the camera up and also reveal the lens here in the top corner. Now, the T70 has got a couple of very neat features, and you'll see the first one as soon as I turn the camera around. It features nothing less than a 3-inch widescreen monitor on the back, but what makes it really special is that it's touch sensitive, and I'll be showing you how that works in just a moment. One of the other features that makes the T70 very special is its smile shutter mode. Now, face detection is no longer good enough for Sony because the T70 can actually recognise when your subjects are smiling, and it can delay taking a picture until those grins are big enough. And I'll be showing you a demonstration of that later on in the video. But right now, let's have a look at the actual design and build quality of the T70. You can see already that it's a very smart looking camera. Sony's designs do look really nice. However, there's not a great deal for you to grip on this camera. On the front, there's nowhere to rest your middle finger to stop it slipping. And on the back, there's just this platform here for your thumb to grip hold of. This is where you'd also attach the strap. So if you're trying to hold this camera with one hand, you might run into some problems. Hold it with two hands though, and it's very simple, but you have to be careful that these fingers don't get in front of the lens. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this camera has a touch-sensitive screen, and that's used for almost all of the controls, but there are a few buttons and switches on the T70, and I'd like to show you how they work right now. The T70 doesn't have many physical controls, but those that it does are located on the top surface. We'll start here with a power button. This works in conjunction with the sliding front cover. You can use it to awake the camera from a power-saving mode, or prepare it to play an image. Speaking of which, next to that is the play button, and alongside that a rather long shutter release, and at the end a tiny lever that's used for zooming the camera. The back of the T70 is of course dominated by that 3-inch touch sensitive screen. I'll be showing you more of that in just a moment. Turn the camera around to the underside and you'll find its only port located here. Now, Sony supplies the T70 with a cable that connects here and ends with a connector for a USB port and also TV output connectors. Sony also has an optional cable that has a component output, and this camera can output 1080i high definition signals that look great on an HD TV. Next to this, you'll find the battery compartment. Here's the rechargeable lithium-ion battery, and next to that the memory card slot. And of course, being a Sony camera, the T70 takes Memory Stick Pro Duo. Now we're outside with the T70, so let's flip down the front cover and see how long it takes to power up. That's just over a second, which is slightly slow considering that the lens doesn't have to extend outside the body. Now, you'll see here the big widescreen display, but you'll also notice that the actual image is only occupying a smaller area in the middle. That's because we're using its best quality 8M mode, and this is the shape of the pictures it will take. You can of course change the recording mode to a different setting. If we put it to 16:9, you'll see that the image now occupies the whole screen, but this is cropping it, so it isn't quite as good quality, so we're going to put it back to its best quality 8M mode here. Now let's have a look at the optical zoom range. Here we are zoomed all the way out at an equivalent of 38mm, and now zoomed all the way in to its equivalent of 114mm. That's not a massive range, and as you'll see, there wasn't any particularly good wide angle coverage there. You'll also notice I'm shaking a little bit here, but of course the T70 has anti-shake facilities, and to activate those you go into the menu. Press that there and you'll see the steady shot menu. You'll see it's off at the moment, so we're going to turn it on just by tapping the on there and pressing back to confirm, and you'll notice now that familiar floating sensation as the stabilization kicks in. So that's quite an improvement even at a focal length of 114mm. Now, like most compact cameras, you can overlay various graphics on the screen. If I press the display button in the bottom right corner, you'll see here some options to display various pieces of shooting information and also turn on a live histogram. Let's have a look at that. There's the histogram there. In order to see the grid though, you've got to go into a different setup menu. And to do that, I'm going to press the home button in the top left corner, go to the setup area, shooting settings, and this is where it begins to slow you down a bit because it says, do you want to adjust the shooting settings? Yes, we do. There's a slight pause there. There's the grid line option. We want to click that to on, but instead it says, are you sure you want to change this? Okay, yes we do. Put those to on, click back, back again, close that, and finally, after all that effort, we've got those grid lines that will help us with alignment and applying the rule of thirds. Now the nice thing about having a touch sensitive screen is that you just tap the setting that you want to change. For example, the sensitivity down there, you can see it's set to 80 ISO. Just tap that and you can change it to say 200 ISO. It's very simple, though you do have to click OK or back every time. One of the other neat things about having a touch sensitive screen is things like being able to point at what you want to focus at. If I press the focus option and go to spot focus, all I have to do now is just point at the area that I want the camera to focus on, maybe up there, or perhaps down there, or in the middle, and you can see the focus mark change as I do that. This is also used to good effect in playback. If I put the camera to playback mode, I can scroll through the images that I've already taken. But if I want to have a closer look at one of them, I just tap at the area that I want to have a look at. So you can zoom in very easily on portions of, say, this boat here, and then use your thumb or finger to actually drag the image around the screen. The other headline feature on the T70 is, of course, its smile shutter mode. Once you press the button, the camera will actually wait until your subject smiles before it takes the picture. There's actually 3 different sensitivity settings for the degree of smiliness on the T70. Believe it or not, we've got it set to its most sensitive mode, and as you can see, it still prefers much bigger, toothier grins. The Sony T70 is undoubtedly a very stylish and feature-packed compact camera. It looks great, and most of those gadgets do work very well in practice. Now, we've seen touch-sensitive screens before, but it's still fun to be able to tap at the setting that you want to change, and in general it proves to be quite an effective way of navigating the T70's various options and menus, although we could have done without having to tap OK or back every time you want to confirm an option. The other headline feature of the T70, its smile shutter mode, really genuinely works in practice, and it's great fun to see this camera pause until your subjects actually smile before it will take the picture. Although again, we found that it tended to prefer big toothy grins rather than the more demure smiles out there. So perhaps if you and your friends fall into the latter category, you'd be better off ignoring that mode and just pressing the shutter release button by hand. So far so good on the gadget front, but unfortunately Sony's taken its eye off the ball slightly in terms of more traditional photographic respects. The 3x optical zoom range is frankly unremarkable. It goes from 38 to 114mm and is therefore missing out on the wide angle facilities that many of its rivals are now offering. There are models by Canon and Panasonic that offer 28mm coverage, and that can be really useful whether you're taking pictures of a big landscape or even just a big group shot. It's a shame not to have it on the Sony. In terms of image quality, if you take a quick look at the T70's pictures, you'll see that they're vibrant and colourful and punchy, as you'd expect from most Sony models. However, look a little bit closer and you'll see that there's smearing due to image processing, noise reduction, and even overly aggressive JPEG compression. It means that the ultimate detail, the finest details, are just not there when you look very close at the T70's pictures, certainly compared to the very best 8MP models that are out there. And that's really what you have to do. You have to weigh up the gadgetry against the photographic respects of this camera. There'll be some people who'll just take one look at the T70's style, see the touch-sensitive screen and hear about the smile shutter mode and think, that's the camera for me. And if you want to get even more gadgety, look out for the T200 version. It's got an even bigger screen and a 5x optical zoom, although sadly it still doesn't get any wider. If, however, you care more about the ultimate image quality and wide-angle coverage, then perhaps you'd be better off looking at a different 8MP compact, such as one of those from Canon or Panasonic. And if you want to see how the T70 measures up against models like those, then head on over to www.cameralabs.com. There in our full review you'll find image quality examples from the T70 and also the best of its rivals, so you can make that decision for yourself. So once again, to see the full review of this camera, head on over to cameralabs.com.